Of course I was muted. Of course. I seem to do this more and more often now. It's about twice in the last few games, but yeah, welcome to Game Week 30, guys. I'll recap on what I just said. Yeah, we're already in the 30s, so hard to believe, really, that it's gone this fast, but here we are. So I've made my moves. I've gone Fernandes to Grealish, Tony to Haaland. Very happy with 29 overall, and I think we're in a good place. How are we all doing? So Stu's already done Tony to Haaland and captained him. Even if he plays 60 minutes, he can call Hall versus Saints. And that's kind of my logic as well, to be honest with you, Stu. Is I just felt like even if he does get a reduced amount of minutes, he can easily bag a hat-trick in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It doesn't matter how much time he gets. Before we kick off too much, without me forgetting, I am going to only be streaming until 10:30 today, just because of some Easter celebrations with the family. So won't be going all the way to the deadline, but I'll still help you with as much as many dilemmas as you've got. And yeah, I guess the captaincy is quite wide open, isn't it? So I think as we get a few more viewers in, we'll do some kind of polling as well on that, because I am curious on how many people are going for Haaland or going against him, rather. Lots of options this week. Lots of options. George, you're going to bring Haaland in, but do some pre-planning. Exactly what I was doing, my friend. Last night, I decided to do it because essentially the price is right. I want to check everybody that went up, because I'm pretty certain Tony was looking like he was going to go down. Haaland was looking like he was going to go up. So actually, in the end, Tony didn't drop, but Watkins and Haaland did go up in price. Even De Bruyne went up to 12.1. Can you believe that? I guess some people wanted to bring in a differential. Darwin down, Odegaard's down. A few different options there later on, maybe, for us to get a bit more of a cheaper purchase. But yeah, Haaland and Watkins have gone up in price, so that 0.1 swing there is the reason I went a little bit early. Yeah, and I think that's likewise for me, George, really, is the 12:30 kickoff kind of put me off twofold, really. It put me off for essentially captaining one of the United boys, but also holding on to Fernandes through it all. It didn't really make sense to me. I'm just not convinced that I'm not convinced that with such high turnover of fixtures and Bruno basically playing every single game, that he was worth keeping. Some people might argue different. At the end of the day, we've got very good fixtures coming up, but I'm just not convinced with him playing that deeper role as well. So, hi Abdullah, welcome to the stream. George, you got 112 points and still took a 20k red arrow. Yeah, I think 119-ish, maybe 120 was around the safety mark in the end. Patrick's a wild card for you. Raya, Ream, Zuma, Trippier, Salah, Saka, Andreas, Grealish, Watkins, Kane, Haaland. And your bench is still Matoma, Gahey and Tarkovsky. Interesting that you've decided to go for Matoma on the bench there over Andreas. I mean, I don't mind the Andreas pick, absolutely, because longer term, I guess that's why you've gone for Ream as well. Longer term, their fixtures are pretty good, even with a tough fixture in 34 or double game week fixtures in 34. I feel like that makes sense, but I'm not sure. I feel like Brighton might be able to get something from Spurs, and that's what's kind of convinced me to bring in March from the bench. I'm not sure. Fulham at home, absolutely, against West Ham could do something, but I think, Patrick, my change for you would probably be Matoma on for Andreas and bench Andreas, but each their own. Morning, Seb. Welcome to the stream, my friend. 149 points. Amazing week, mate. Absolutely massive. I have taken a -4, Stu, yes. Great last week. 350k Green Arrow. Abdullah, well done, sir. FPL Josh, morning. Earlier than me, not live till 10. Perfect, mate. Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. I'm only live until 10:30, sir. I've got some Easter celebrations with the family, basically, so I won't be going all the way till the to the deadline, but I'm well. How are you doing, mate? Welcome to the stream. Jules loved that Gahey shout. Palace fixtures are so easy. They are indeed. And I think the thing is, with a new manager again, we know what he can do, and he's just like, I don't know, he just exists forever, doesn't he? Really, but the thing is that defensively we know what he can do. So absolutely, I think Gahey does make sense. So your overall rank now 898k, Abdullah. Well done, mate. Moving through those ranks nicely. And you've done your moves, Tony to Haaland and Gabriel to Mings. I like those moves. I do feel that Liverpool will probably get a goal or two against Arsenal at home. So that makes sense to me. I like the Mings pick as well. They've looked really, really solid under Emery. So Estepinian to a City defender and Tony to Haaland. Could you just do Tony to Haaland though, Seb? Do you have to do Estepinian to City? What's your bench like in terms of coverage? Because I think Tottenham do score against Brighton. But again, my only concern about a City defender is that if you went for anyone really, the Kanji, Ake, Diaz, Stones, even Laporte, out of those 5, who's the one that's most nailed? Stones is probably the biggest shout in my opinion because of his progressed midfield role. It's just about the Champions League fixtures that caused me a bit of a headache for City defenders. Just something to consider. You know, if you're going to take a -4 for that as well, is it really worth bringing in the City defender? Why don't you just play Estepinian? That would be my my logic there. Who should you play, Henry or Estepinian? It's a tough call because, again, from my team selection, I've made a few adjustments, really. I actually had Henry starting instead of Botman and Maddison ahead of March, but I've decided to change that. I'm not sure that Brentford will keep a clean sheet against Newcastle, although their home form is very, very good. I'm not sure. They might be able to sneak a sort of a 1-0, a 0-0 against Newcastle there, so Henry could be a good shout. Estepinian's definitely got the attacking return potential though, so it's really, Abdullah, we know on this stream that I like to use the terminology, but I genuinely think that's a coin flip. I think it's so close between the two of them. I think defensively, both teams are quite leaky. Like we've seen, obviously, Brighton concede 3 against Brentford, for example. They're sometimes quite erratic under De Zerbi. So I feel like away as well could be the case. Barzid, welcome to the stream. Pinnock or Botman? Already have Trippier. See, I guess that's the same debate I've just had between Henry and Botman, right? I kind of wanted to have that Brentford cover because I feel like maybe a few people play Raya, a few people may play a Brentford defender. But actually, I just think Newcastle have a better shout of keeping a clean sheet. So I've gone Botman. I mean, it'd be a bit silly for me to contradict my own selection, I suppose, really, Fazid. So I've got Henry as the last bench option, mate. So I think that tells you everything. The only difference between Pinnock and Henry, though, is Pinnock has more goal threat. So it's whether you feel like he could wipe out the Newcastle clean sheet with a potential goal. But, I mean, it's such a rarity for defenders anyway. I think I'd choose Botman out of the two. Abdullah, your team is Iverson, Trippier, Henry, Mings, Rashford, Maddison, Fernandes, Matoma, Haaland, Kane and Watkins. Your bench is Raya, Estepinian, March and Shaw. See, I don't mind that because you've got a Brighton coverage, I suppose, in Matoma already. March versus Maddison would be an interesting one, though. Obviously, I've gone for March because I really do want a Brighton mid in this game week, I think. Seb, so you can only do the Tony to Haaland move, but because you can't get in the top 2 mil, and as a City fan, you want to have a City defender, Stones or Diaz. I think if that's the case, if that's the way you want to play, then I think that I would prefer Stones. I think Diaz still gets rotated. Stones has probably got the most chance, but it's so difficult, mate. As you know, as a City fan, you rotate so much on that back line. I just feel like Stones, in his new progressive / kind of midfielder role, he might get a bit more minutes. It just depends on whether he plays the Champions League in that role as well. And again, it's a high turnover of fixtures for you guys. So it's close, but I think I do just prefer Stones slightly. Should you play Emery or Estepinian? Like I say, I think it's so close because you have no other option, do you really? You can't play Shaw. It's a shame. It's a shame he's out. I think I prefer Estepinian, to be honest, Abdullah. It's very close, though. Jedi Stew, you are keeping Bruno, hoping Eriksen starts. Do you have any news on Eriksen? I think that he will be in the squad, as far as I know. After Erik ten Hag's press conference, he said he'll be in the squad. I don't think he'll start the game, though. And this is my issue, is that he might get 20, 30 minutes, which absolutely might give Fernandes more freedom moving forward on that last 20, 30 minutes. So I get keeping him. I completely understand longer term. Once we have Eriksen back, once Casemiro is back, absolutely, he is a shout, right? But then that could happen in time for game week 34. So maybe I bring him back again, but we'll see. We'll see. I think, again, though, the point is for this game week specifically, and maybe the next few game weeks, I just feel like he is going to be playing that deeper role. What's my Easter plans? Well, my wife is Catholic, so we'll be going to church. I don't actually believe, but yeah, I'm a supportive husband, so I'm going to go to church with her, mate. And then after that, tomorrow is really where the plans are mostly with the family, so we'll have an Easter dinner and everything else. But today it's essentially just church this morning, and their last one in our local church starts at 11 o'clock, so I can't stay on till the deadline. Abdullah, Stone's minutes are a bit more nailed than Ake and Diaz. Yeah, I think that too. Just slightly. Which Liverpool and City assets to target for game week 34? I mean, I would go with the obvious ones here, right? That Trent, Robertson, Salah, maybe for Liverpool. Potentially you throw in Diaz if he's back from injury. Potentially Darwin. But I think Salah's probably the most nailed. Trent and Robertson. Depends, really. We know that they're out of the Champions League now, so there's no kind of fixture congestion for them. They're probably the best Liverpool assets. For City, I think you could take the risk or punt on De Bruyne, obviously. We know about Erling Haaland already. I like Grealish. And then, of course, City defenders, really, and we've just gone through those as well, Abdullah. So I think they're probably the best shortlisted players. Seb, you want to get into the top 100k, but you can't, so think I start to play FPL more real next season. Well, that does make sense to me. I mean, you started, 5-6 weeks late? Maybe less than that, I can't remember, but absolutely next season, just take everything that you've learned this season into it, and I'm sure that your rank will get better. Jan Aigner, welcome to the stream, mate. You priced yourself out of Haaland with Salah and Kane, but feel like with Shaw injury, it's maybe worth removing him for like Mings instead of double Newcastle and get Haaland for Kane. Thoughts? It's an interesting one because actually Tottenham's fixtures is quite difficult. Brighton's quite a difficult fixture already. Even though it's home, I feel like they're challenging for Europe. They're actually challenging Newcastle. They're challenging Newcastle. They're challenging United. They're challenging everybody around them, right, including Spurs. So I feel like that's a tough fixture for Kane. But he's just been so consistent. I'm not sure I like Haaland for Kane. I prefer to kind of have them both. But like you say, because you've got Salah, it's tricky. I think if you're really worried about the red arrow, right? If you're really worried and you want to captain Haaland, then you do it. If you're not necessarily that worried about captaining him, or just even in general his ownership, maybe you just leave him for a week or so. FPL Josh, you like my stream layout? How did I do it? Not been going long this year, but much appreciated if you let me know because the layout looks nice. So it's a bit of everything, really. It's kind of a bit of OBS. I use Canva to design pretty much everything. So I do solid images of PNGs, basically. So I've got a layout here. The fixtures are an animation on Canva. The mini league and socials on the left-hand side are an animation with Canva. Everything else, though, in front of you is just a PNG. The sliders at the bottom and the top are, again, OBS settings. To be honest with you, the best thing to do is just YouTube like OBS layouts and OBS in terms of tutorials. Same for Canva, mate, if you're just getting started. Shark, should you do Estepinian over Botman? You've asked 2 FPL YouTubers. One said Botman, another said Estepinian over Botman. What are your thoughts? Well, I've gone for Botman, right? You can see from here, I prefer the double Newcastle defence. I think that back line looked absolutely solid. You know, West Ham did get a goal, yes. You know, we have seen them concede a little bit here and there, but I genuinely back the Newcastle defenders, I think, over Estepinian this week. Who would I start, Castagna or Stones? I would start Stones. If you're going to bring him in, then absolutely I would start him. Abdullah, Dan, do you think you could finish this season in the top 10k, considering there are doubles and blanks coming in the final 10 game weeks? I mean, if we have a look at my live FPL page, right, you'll see that the points, they're not so far off, but this little section here at the bottom, I'm 12 points currently off of 50k, but I'm 52 points off of top 10k. So I don't think it's not realistic. I don't think it's unrealistic to get there, but 52 points is quite substantial. It basically means an extra what 5 or 6 points on the over the course of the next 10 weeks than your top 10k. So I don't think it's possible. Top 25k looks a little bit more in reach though. Only 30 points difference. So I think I've got a free hit planned in 32. I'll probably have around 7 or 8 doublers in 34 if the transfers go to plan. So I think there is definitely still areas to move on. The problem I've got with this table at the moment is that there are still people that haven't used their chips. For example, Boo Boo's just joined the stream. FPL Boo Boo's one of those highly ranked people or players that haven't used free hit yet, haven't used a second wild card and haven't used their bench boost. So this will certainly influence these ranks in this area. So I'm not going to get too confident now. I think the top 50k is very realistic. Top 25k would be a fantastic finish. So that's kind of my thoughts at the moment. You're also tempted to just ditch Salah right again after getting him for Grealish and then Haaland for Tony. Sort of solves 2 problems at once with Tony yellow card problem down the line. That makes a lot more sense. I much prefer that move because you're doing something similar to what I've done, I suppose. I took a semi-premium in Fernandes and did the exact same thing. Freed up enough money for me to bring Tony out and put Haaland in for captaincy. So I'd much prefer that. Hiya Tanoki, welcome to the stream, mate. You think Newcastle will lose their clean sheet? If you think that, then absolutely. I think Estepinian does make more sense ahead of him or a different player, but I'm going to back the Newcastle boys this week. Thinking of Shah to Mings to fund Havertz to Haaland, that or Odegaard to Andreas to fund Haaland. That is the dilemma, I guess, Tanoki. This is the point. Last night, obviously, I made those moves to not price myself out of it. Well, not necessarily price myself out of it, but just get that 0.1, 0.2 swing. I think out of those options, you've got a triple Newcastle defence. So I think triple Newcastle defence to jump off now could work out in your favour. They have got some double game weeks, obviously, ahead. It's just whether you want to maybe move for someone like Isak later on, or you think that potentially that third Newcastle slot will be valuable at some point. Then share to Mings, Havertz to Haaland I'd like. Because I'm just not convinced with Chelsea attack. And now Lampard's in charge, I'm just not sure. Shark got it, thanks. Defo going Botman instead of Estepinian then. Well, obviously that's 2 YouTubers to 1, I suppose, right? In terms of the question. Seb, fun fact about Leicester is they haven't kept a clean sheet since game week 16, and even when you would say that they are playing against the worst team in the league, you think Solanke Bournemouth could still score. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more on that point, to be honest. And I think as well, Leicester at home, I saw a tweet just before going live that they are one of the worst, if not the worst, for XG at home. So the problem is with Maddison, again, I like him as a pick. I want him to return because I've had him for a couple of weeks now, right? But it's just not worked out. It's not worked out for him. And to be honest with you, Leicester in front of goal without Jamie Vardy are really lacking at the moment. So not only are they possibly a clean sheet wipeout, they're also in a goal drought as well, which is why I've gone for March over Maddison. You're thinking about using the wild card, George? That kind of makes sense, I guess. You could set yourself up very, very well for 34. 32 you might be able to set yourself up for as well to some degree, so you won't need to free hit if you've still got it. Chill Gamer, who would you start, Estepinian or Henry? Again, we've had this debate with Abdullah. I'm just not sure. I think it's very, very close, but I think I would just edge to Estepinian, maybe. Very close call, though. You think Iverson will get a clean sheet? He's better than Ward. It maybe so, but it's not about being better than his counterpart goalkeeper. It's being in a team that doesn't keep clean sheets. That's the problem. White to Moreno to free up the third Arsenal spot to Ode, Jesus or Trossard for the upcoming weeks. Don't mind that. Although there is something to consider with Arsenal where they're not doubling in any way. So I think maybe one Arsenal midfielder or Jesus kind of, I don't mind that so much. If you've already got Saka, then I feel like that's not necessarily a priority move. White to Moreno I like as a differential, absolutely. Yep, Salah is nice differential, but also a never real threat for rank, and Liverpool just so inconsistent. With Grealish for now, you can at least move this spot easier to loads of options if needed. Exactly. There's so many mid-price midfielders now. You could sort of double up on the Brighton boys. March and Matoma look like good options. You've got Odegaard, as already mentioned there. There's just so many options. You can even go cheaper than Grealish as well and go for someone like Andreas, for example. So I feel like absolutely having those budget midfielders is a great price point. Tanoki, doesn't matter about the triple this week. We'll bench Botman if you keep all three. Okay, fair enough. Then I would say I still do like the Share till you've got the assist with Share. There was an attacking return coming from him for a while, right? So you've bagged those points essentially. I'd say now is probably a good time to drop off of him. Mings looks really, really strong in terms of an option. So if that's how you kind of maneuver the funds around, I suppose, in some way, shape or form, I feel like that makes sense for you, Tanoki. Yeah, to the end of the season, prefer keeping Kane all season. Still many really good games and more of a top 4 fight than Liverpool. Absolutely. I think he's so consistent. The only time I'll look to remove him is potentially if I need to free up money. So if I do want to go for Salah, for example, around double game week 34, then I may remove Kane at that stage. But to be honest, then with 4 games into the close of the season, it then becomes an argument, right, between does Liverpool score more or does Salah score more than Kane in those last 4 weeks? So that's kind of where I maybe will sell Kane. But you're right that he's an easy hold for the rest of the season, absolutely. Shark, start Havertz over Isak. You have those two and Watkins. I'm not sure. I mean, Isak's minutes, of course, we know could potentially be reduced, right? With Wilson, they are shared a little bit. But the thing is that Chelsea under Lampard, are we convinced that they're going to be any more sort of attacking or any better? I'm not convinced yet. So maybe Isak is the better one out of the two. Seb, so your team is Stones, Trippier, Chilwell, Saka, Rashi, Matoma, Maddison, Haaland, Kane and Watkins. Bench is Raya, March, Castagna and Botman. So you're actually playing Maddison ahead of March, Seb. What's your reasoning for that? Just out of curiosity, because I had the same thought, right? Because I looked at the fixture and, when you see Bournemouth, your eyes light up and think, it's going to be a double-digit haul. But what's your reasoning versus March? Because I think he's been playing really, really well at the moment. Michael, play Tony or Maddison. I think I would play Maddison out of the two, but again, that's pretty close because Tony, I feel like, is probably the better goal threat than Maddison at the moment because they're just not producing, are they, Leicester? It's just so disappointing. I think I would just edge Maddison, though, because of the fixture. I think Tony might find it a little bit difficult against Newcastle, to be honest. I think Eddie Howe's going to shut him out. Should you do Fernandes to Grealish? You're using free hit in 34. Well, Shark, I suppose it depends on how you navigate 32, right? If you're happy to bring in kind of, because both of those blank, right? Fernandes blanks, Grealish blanks in 32. If you're happy to be able to navigate that with just free transfers, or you're happy to play, say, a weakened team of 10 or 9 players, then I don't mind that. I've done it, right? I've done that move, essentially. I've mainly to fund Tony to Haaland, but I did sell Bruno. As mentioned earlier on, look, I'm a United fan. I absolutely love watching Bruno play. I think he's so good on the ball. He's he comes across as a little bit of a kind of, throwing a temper tantrum every now and again with his arms up in the air and waves around a little bit too much. Maybe he's a bit dramatic, but from a neutral perspective. But in terms of what he does for the team, he's outstanding. And in terms of FPL, he's definitely got the output possibilities. It's just recently, because of the Casemiro ban, because of the Eriksen injury and so on, he's he's been playing a lot deeper than we'd want him from an FPL point of view. So I just think not only is it about the fact that you're using the free hit in 34, I just think overall Grealish makes more sense than Bruno. Patrick, Matoma versus Andrea. So West Ham have conceded 12 in the last 6 game weeks, Spurs only 6. Fair enough. That does kind of make sense, although 5 of West Ham's goals were against Newcastle and they absolutely fell apart in that game. So I wouldn't read too much into just the goals conceded. I would say it was more about kind of how they were conceded, right? You know, in what areas of the pitch as well was something to take into consideration. It does make sense though. Mystical, is Isak going to start? It's a tough question, but I think he would do. I feel that Wilson got the start against West Ham because Eddie Howe even came out post game and said that part of the reason that Wilson started was his record against West Ham was so good. That was part of the reasoning why he started. And again, it's high turnover of games, weekend to midweek to weekend. Maybe he just didn't want to risk Isak. I think that, you know, with him coming on, scoring that goal against West Ham as well, I think he potentially starts. Seb, you just think that March has played really good, but you don't think Brighton will score more than 1 or maybe 2, and you think the points will divide with all of those Brighton mids. Fair enough. I mean, you're playing Matoma anyway, so I guess you've got that coverage to some degree. Is Bruno to KDB for -4 good if you're free hitting in 32? If not, bench March or Bruno. Love from Sweden. Well, welcome to the stream. I think Bruno to KDB for a -4. I don't hate it. If you're going to kind of keep him through to double game week 34, then absolutely. We haven't seen De Bruyne be as so explosive though, I suppose. So it's a bit of a punt. But of course, you're free hitting in 32, so that does make sense. If not benching March or Bruno, I think I would bench March in that scenario and keep Bruno. But again, talking about the deeper position and the deeper role, what's he going to get against Everton? The chances of a penalty are pretty much, in my opinion, his best opportunities of an attacking return. So that's what I would consider. Seb, you think Maddison is going to score more points than March because Leicester have a better fixture and they score a lot of goals at home? Interesting. I've read the statistic that Leicester have the worst expected goals in terms of home fixtures, but I might check that before I drop off the stream. Going in 32, you might do Havertz to Iheanacho and Chilwell to Zuma. Haven't thought about it much. Might just roll a transfer this game week. Well, this is the thing. Iheanacho, Daka, like those Leicester attackers, they've just shown nothing, right? So if that improves over the next few weeks, then absolutely shark. But if it's just about sort of, you know, just covering that price point, then maybe there's better options. You know, maybe someone like Isak becomes a much better option than Iheanacho. Because they're similar prices, right? It's about 7 point something. So Tanoki, let's say you do share to Mings and Havertz to Haaland. You need to bench 3 of these 5. Botman, Mings, Gabriel, Odegaard, Matoma. So I think you bench Gabriel. I think you bench Botman because you've got Trippier already and you're bringing in Mings, so that makes sense. Matoma or Odegaard? That's a really tricky one, mate. That's where I feel like you've got your headache. Because Gabriel and Botman, to me, I think are bench. Odegaard or Matoma? I mean, based on form, you'd probably bench Odegaard, right? But Liverpool are gonna push against Arsenal. It's going to be a bit of an open game, I think, this. So Odegaard has potentially maybe more opportunity to get attacking returns. Very close call. Seb, you think March could get 1 assist or maybe 1 goal, but you think Maddison could easily get more. Fair enough. I mean, that is the point, right? You put out your team that you think is going to score you the most points. Boo Boo, your target over the next 3 weeks, fill 11 players for game week 32 and 2 free transfers for game week 32. Remove Havertz or Fernandes to Arsenal attackers versus Southampton. I think that's it, right? It all just comes down to future planning and where you want to use your chips. If you don't have to use the free hit in 32, then absolutely it makes sense to hold on to it, to maybe target a double game week. I think you mentioned game week 37 in your comments to try and push you up the ranks in those last final moments. See, a lot of players, I think, do underestimate that those chips can really have a massive influence later on in the season. I watched Focal's video interviewing the current number 1, right? And he's very, very scarce with his chip usage. He makes sure that he's absolutely on point with it. And when you're number one in the world, and he was 200 and something, I think, the season before, so it's no fluke. He seems to know what he's doing. It's an interesting video, so definitely go check it out if you haven't watched it. Talking about chips was a good section. Seb, can you look at the team transfers? Tony to Haaland and Estu to Stones. If you give me the team ID, it's a lot easier, to be honest with you, Seb, rather than checking it out on the main page, because I can't do the moves and then see how your team looks, if that makes sense, on the official page. Right, so let's have a look at captaincy. I'm going to do a poll to see how what people are thinking. Now, I can only put 4 options in, I think, which is really frustrating. So let's put... I'm going to have to go with Man United player, Brighton player, because there's multiple midfielders, right? Haaland, Watkins, maybe. There's a lot more. There's Kane. There's so many options. It's so annoying I can only ask 4 options. So I don't feel like this is going to be a true reflection. But I'm going to ask in this fashion. So like I said, I've put Man United player, Brighton player. Just, if you're going to go Fernandes, you're going to go Rashford. Let's see what people's thoughts are. In the meantime, I'm going to just quickly have a look at Scout and just compare Spurs versus Bournemouth, because I do want to have a look at this situation with Maddison versus March. George, you've gone with the wild card. You've got yourself in a good spot, able to roll next week and survive the blank in 32. I think that makes sense. Have you already used your free hit as well, George? Because I guess that makes sense. Tanoki, it was a good point. Using first wild card as late as possible to use the second one as late as possible. Absolutely. Makes the most sense, right? But it was a really good watch. Yeah, now you remove Salah again, ready for another 21 pointer, but you just want to be not. You want to not be locking that mid spot. You think there are best punts for the rest of the season, even if quick in and outs. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think the money in Salah is the difficulty, right? Is Watkins a must buy? I really like this fixture for him. I think he's been so consistent, right? He's been really, really good so far. So in the last 4 matches, Bournemouth definitely look like they're conceding more chances overall. Tottenham do look pretty defensively solid on the right-hand side, but let's have a look at crosses conceded. I think Mitoma's going to do well here against Spurs, if I'm honest, just looking at some of the numbers here. Out of the 2, I would prefer owning Mitoma over March, but it's such a close call between these 2. It's the last thing I'm going to be debating, I guess. So 69% are on... excuse me, 69% of you are on Haaland, so I guess that's pretty convincing. With the Man United play, I'm assuming most people will be going Rashford. Nobody's going Brighton. 14% are going Watkins. Not too bad. It's a pretty spread, but I think most people... It makes sense for Haaland, I guess. No surprise. What about benching Maddison and playing Isak? I don't mind that. You played your free hit on the last blank. You only had 6 players otherwise. Okay, makes sense. Who would I play for Jack? Gabriel, me, or Estepinian? I think I would play Estepinian. I mean, me does have the home fixture. No, he doesn't have the home fixture, does he? Yes, he does have the home fixture. Gabriel and Estepinian are both away, but I think I like him more after the attacking threat. Ericsson will influence Fernandez's position. Is he a hold? Ericsson will be in the squad, more than likely, boo-boo, but I don't think he'll play from the off. I don't think he'll play 90 minutes. He might play 30. He might be sort of given even less than that, 20 minutes or 15 minutes in terms of a run out. So he might influence Bruno the latter stages of the game, but I'm not so certain he's going to start for the 90. Excuse me, guys. Is Chilwell worth buying? I do like Chilwell as an option. I think he was unfortunate to only score 9 points in the double, in my opinion. It was so close for him getting some kind of an assist or whatever. But this is the point about Havertz. This is the debate about Chelsea attack. Chilwell's been so threatening, putting in those potential assists and crosses and everything, but nobody's on the end of it, which is worrying from a Chelsea perspective. But let's see how we get on. Let's see how we get on. I really like him as a pick, though. Grealish hasn't really had a high ceiling, but then again, rarely any City attacker has more than an assist threat when Haaland is playing. That is true. He did score his highest points tally last game week, right? 12 points, I think he scored. But I just think he looks even better than he did in a Villa shirt. For the first time in a City shirt, he looks like it's starting to tick. And to me, when you're in a Pep system and you start to tick, then there is the potential of having a high ceiling. I think the eye test really convinced me with him, to be honest. Tanoki, wildcard to set up to not take hits and roll transfer is the biggest lie ever. Yeah, that's just the situation you find yourself in sometimes, right? It is very difficult. The thing is with wildcarding is it is meant to be judged over a course of 4 or 5 game weeks, right? You can't necessarily say you're never going to roll, you're never going to take a hit, or you're guaranteed to roll the transfer, because that's just never. There's no guarantees in FPL. But that's the thought process. Castagna or Gahey and Matoma or Maddison are my only dilemmas. I think I would go Gahey over Castagna because I'm just not convinced on Leicester, to be honest. I think Roy Hodgson's going to change Palace again, mate, right? They're just defensively, they'll be sound. He'll park the bus if it's a 1-0. So I just think, honestly, Gahey makes the most sense. Their fixtures are really good as well. Matoma or Maddison, I think Matoma. Like Patrick said, Matoma it is. Genuinely, I think the stats of Spurs, they're conceding significantly more chances down the left than the right-hand side. Armin, Dan, what's the reason you're benching Maddison? Is he unfit? He's not unfit, Armin. He was training with the squad, and I've just been looking at statistics versus March, and I'm just not sure. I'm not convinced yet I'll do this. I may still play Maddison. But I am worried about the Brighton boys. This is the problem. Saish, welcome to the stream, mate. Fernandez, Tony to Haaland, Jesus, Grealish for a -4. I think, yes, Fernandez and Tony to Haaland and Grealish are the moves I've made, so I'm absolutely going to back that. I also did it for a -4. Nathan, welcome to the stream. Bruno to Grealish in order to enable Tony to Haaland for a hit. Sound good. Exactly what I've done, my friend. Moves above me, above my head, just this side. There. That's for a -4 for my team. So again, Nathan, Saish, both making the same moves here, but absolutely going to back those. Yanagna, thoughts on Diaz, Stones, Ake? You're likely getting one. I think Stones out of the 3 is probably the more nailed there, but it's so difficult with City defenders, as we know. It is a roulette wheel. And I think Stones is playing in a very advanced role at the moment, so he looks the most positive. And your thoughts on starting March and Matoma over Tony? I would probably start Matoma over Tony if that was kind of a dilemma for you. March, I'm not sure now. I'm looking at it and I'm not convinced. Just looking at the stats has made me change my mind a little bit. Tanoki, yeah, we covered this earlier. So share to Mings, bench 3 of 5. I would definitely, if you're going to do Mings, you don't bench him. You definitely play him. You're going to then bench Botman, Gabriel, and then I think I would bench Odegaard. Yes, I can, Seb, mate. I can see that you put your ID in there, mate. Sorry, I was just answering all the other questions, and then we can move through on to FPL team. So you did. I'm gonna have to go back now. I can't remember what moves you made. You must have done... Okay, you did this, didn't you? You did this. So you're benching March. Something like that. Is that where you're at? Then Captain Haaland, probably. I'm going to go Vice on Saka. Saying bye to Estepinian feels like the end of an era. Yeah, indeed. I'm not willing to sell him just yet. That's how I think you'd line up, Seb, right? Is it worth taking a hit for Chilwell or Watkins? I guess Mystical. It is team dependent with hits. So if you're setting yourself up, so Chilwell obviously blanks in 32. So the first point is: are you bringing in a blanking player later down the line for the minus now, and you haven't got a free hit? In which case, no, I don't think Chilwell's worth the -4 now. Watkins does play in 32. So I don't mind that. But again, it is team specific. So a bit of future planning is probably the best option. Barnes captain sound good? No, I don't think Barnes captain is the way this week, Nathan, if I'm honest. If you're going to bring in Haaland and Grealish for a hit, I think Haaland captain makes sense. Tanoki, sorry you was eating dinner, you must have missed it. No problem, sir. Ahmed Thadani, is the blank game week 32 completely confirmed with the teams that are blanking, or can it change? No, it's completely confirmed, Armin. There'll be no additional blanks there other than the 4 that are already confirmed. Seb, you don't have your free hit. So that's interesting that you brought in Stones then, considering that you don't have your free hit. So in 32 then, this is going to be a very, very tricky game week for you to navigate, right? Like, you're going to have this scenario where you've got at least 3 blanking starting players. I don't know if you're not going to want to get rid of Chilwell ahead of a double game week. You're not really going to want to get rid of all of these guys for a double game week. You might end up only playing 7 or 8 players. It's interesting that you went for Stones in the end, as opposed to someone that's actually playing in 32. Hi, Luke. Welcome to the stream, mate. You brought in Haaland for Tony this week. Would I start March or Matoma and Pope or Kepa? I think I would start Kepa to cover that Chelsea defence, especially if you don't have Chilwell. I think Haaland for Tony is absolutely perfect. Of course, we know with the yellow card with Tony, that's always a risk. March over Matoma or Matoma over March. I think it's Matoma over March for me. Just the numbers for Matoma on the left-hand side against Spurs, I think, look a little bit better. Boo Boo, bench 2. Matoma, White, Botman, Havertz, me. Bench 2. I think I would bench Ben White. Not sure I could justify benching Havertz, though. Ben, me. I mean, again, let's have a look at some defensive stats for who have we got there realistically. We've got, it's Newcastle versus Brentford, isn't it, really? So me versus Botman are probably the other two to look, or the other one to look at. So I think Ben White's a bench. Let's compare Brentford versus Newcastle quickly. So defending. Just a reminder, guys, I am only going to be on for 10 minutes more at 10:30. I do have to leave. But we will try to get as many questions answered ahead of that 10:30. So Brentford, in the last 4 matches, have conceded so many chances in the centre, the left and the right flank. Honestly, defensively, it's not been great for them. Newcastle, to give you the comparison, right, of Newcastle defence to Brentford, Newcastle have conceded in the last 4 matches 6 chances on the left, 6 chances through the middle, and 4 chances through the right. They're bottom of that table, essentially, when you filter most to least. So they're the best defence in the last 4 games. Then you look at Brentford. They're top of the table. In other words, they're worst. 14 chances on the left, 23 in the centre, and 16 on the right. So I guess if people are still talking about Estepinian versus Henry, I would definitely look at playing Estepinian over Henry, and then I think Botman definitely over Ben Mee. It's not taking into consideration away versus home. That's just last 4 matches, but still, that's Brentford are conceding a lot of chances. Seth, welcome to the stream, mate. Tony and Maddison to Haaland and Grealish for a -4. Roll the transfer or Kane to Haaland. I think I do like the Haaland and Grealish picks, right? I really do. Would I sell Maddison for Grealish? It's tricky. If you need to free up the money in order to get to Haaland, then yes. If you can just do Tony to Haaland on its own, then maybe just do that, Seth. Seb, you are right, but I'm hoping that my captain will give me the grey arrow. I hope so. But I think you're probably going to look at a red in 32, mate, if I'm honest. Just because of how many players have still got the free hit. Mount starts today. It's done bedtime at 10:30. Something like that, mate. When you've got 2 kids under 2, sleep is a commodity, mate. Trust me. There isn't... It's not like it used to be, let's put it that way. Do we definitely know that Haaland is fit? Luke, I mean, I'm confident enough with Pep's comments that he's fit enough to play at least, say, 45 to 60 minutes. And that's enough for me to captain him, because I think against Saints he could go absolutely wild. Rico Henry is more like horrid Henry. Worst transfer I've made this season was getting him. Yeah, I definitely built up a bit of hype for him in my own head and maybe for some of the community. But then we can't always get stuff right at the end of the day. The stats look pretty good for him. Some people bought Pinnock and ended up getting obviously a couple of goals as well in the time frame, which would have been the better move. And maybe we wouldn't be sitting here saying this stuff. But honestly, Brentford have just conceded so many chances. Hence why he's third bench. So the only thing for me to decide before the deadline, guys, is this, right? This is the situation. I mean, oh dear. Honestly, it's such a tricky one. I feel like March could do something against Spurs, but I think I might just have to accept it. I mean, so he's 11% owned. Maddison's 11.3% owned. So actually between the both of them, the ownership is relatively similar. There may be some people that take a punt on a captain of Maddison, though, so maybe that gets a little bit increased. Pepper said he's trained so good over the past few days he is ready. This is about Haaland. Yeah, indeed, Armin. And those comments were enough for me to make the moves last night. I'm kind of glad, really, that we had early press conferences, because having that information that early on and Pep giving us useful information for once as well is the way. Big question. You said, Mings, but Odegaard is on the chopping block too. Could it be more valuable to free an Arsenal spot for Jesus or free the Newcastle slot? I mean, Jesus could definitely be an option. At his price point, absolutely. Like, he's easily a Watkins or a Tony, essentially. Very, very similar. So if you feel like Odegaard is one to go, who would you replace him with? Honestly, ever since COVID, this cough has been absolutely horrendous. I've not been able to shake it. And when did I get COVID? Like 2 months ago? 6 weeks ago or something? Crazy. You could start March over Saka as well. I don't think so. I think I've actually got the vice captaincy on Saka. Whether that sticks or not, I don't know. Probably not. Probably onto Watkins. But honestly, I think Saka on the right hand side could just absolutely murder Trent. If I'm honest, I reckon he'll absolutely destroy him. See you later, Stu. Well, thank you for joining the stream, mate. I hope you enjoy your Easter weekend. Have a good one, mate. Amar, hi Dan and everyone. Just woke up. Did you miss anything? Well, you've missed, 45, 55 minutes of the stream. Unfortunately, I'm only going to be on for 5 more minutes, Amar. Again, this week, just personal things have meant I can't stick beyond the deadline or even up to the deadline this week. But I did hear and take your advice on board that, yes, absolutely, I will try to stay on longer after deadlines in the future, but just I can't do it this week. Boo Boo, last question. Start both Saka and Martinelli. I mean, again, let's have a look at the Liverpool defending stats. They've looked a little bit better recently. But Right and left is pretty equal. So they've conceded 14 chances down the right-hand side, 13 chances on the left in the past 4 games. So where both Saka and Martinelli operate. We know Anfield is a bit of a fortress at times. It can be an absolute, very, very difficult place to go, but I'm still going to back at least one of those attackers to get something. Seb, you want to have Grealish so bad, but you don't think for a -4 it's worth it. Maddison to Grealish or March to Grealish. You'll probably do Maddison to Grealish in game week 34. I think that's enough. I think that's enough to just wait until 34 and do it. I know what you mean. There could be a bit of FOMO with Grealish. He's a great differential this week, in my opinion. You know, he's 4.1% owned. It's absolutely madness to me. Amar, 5 minutes of Dan is definitely worth it. Thanks, mate. Amit, Shorter, Moreno, City Defender or Chilwell. Chilwell is too template and you need something differential. I guess Moreno does make sense then for if you're looking for differentials. I mean, I haven't really got a list of differentials to give you, to be honest, Amit. I mean, we could just quickly, before I shoot off, if we have a look at the fixture ticker real quick. Let's say we go up to double game week 34, defence, difficulty. I mean, do you go for a Fulham defender? West Ham, Everton, Leeds, Villa in the next 4 games, and then they've got City and Liverpool in the double. Yes, it's a difficult double fixture, but do you go someone like Ream? Do you go for Palace, Leeds, Southampton, Everton, Wolves, West Ham? The next 5 fixtures, very strong. With Hodgson back in charge as well, do we think that actually defensively they'll improve? I think there's options there, Amit, definitely. But I think if you want to go really differential, it's going to be maybe a Fulham defender or a Palace defender. You're absolutely right about Chilwell being template. George, Liverpool 3rd in the home table, but around 13th in the away table. Yeah, makes sense, I guess. They do play much better at Anfield, definitely. Amar, you didn't care about Watkins before, but now you have to start to have the FOMO. Will he continue to punish me? Potentially, mate. Against Forest at home. I mean, its fixtures don't necessarily get any better than that, right? Other than Bournemouth, potentially. Just defensively, I think both teams, though, they are improving. The longer the Premier League goes on, they are getting better. You've just got to pray. If you can't get to him, Amar, you've just got to pray he doesn't return. Amit, thanks, Dan. Take care of your health. Happy Easter. Happy Easter to you as well, sir. And yeah, thanks for joining. Hopefully it helped you, sir. Seb, so you hope you get a huge green arrow now in 30 and 31. So game week 32 would not be that bad. I mean, it might even itself out over the next 3 weeks. You're right. It could work out that way. And Moreno is such a good pick. I wasn't disappointed when you got him last week. He was unlucky not getting an attacking return against Leicester. Absolutely. I think Moreno is a very, very strong option for that price point as well. Right, guys, we're going to wrap up the stream. I know it's half an hour early, so I do apologise for that. Next game week, absolutely, it will go to the deadline as normal. I think I'm going to lock in Maddison over March. I think after looking at the stats, I've backtracked again. But yeah, I think in terms of the hot topics, I think definitely Newcastle defenders look better than Brentford defenders. I would probably go Brighton over Brentford as well. So I'd probably play Estepinian over Henry, someone like that. If you're looking to do a move for HAALAND in, absolutely look to sell one of your assets like Salah, Fernandes, maybe for him. And that -4, I do think it's worth it. So just to summarise, I guess, kind of questions I've had. Hopefully it's helped. Again, sorry to leave early, but good luck for the game week, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Some more content coming your way next week. And then, of course, I will be doing a stream again next week. So feel free to tune in. Thanks for anyone who's subscribed and new to the channel as well. Really appreciate the support, guys. And I'll see you in the next one very, very shortly. Take care, guys. Good luck again. See you later.